Well, thank you, Ian, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I want to thank all of the speakers so far for, I'm a positive person, but it takes a lot of heart and bravery to stand up for the little person in this world, and I think the speakers have shown that we can do that in many different ways, and of course the context here we're now talking about the little person being the environment. The environment doesn't vote, so we need advocates to speak for it. So it's just been very heartening for me today, and it reassures me that despite the challenges we face, the world is going to be okay. So we've all got to work hard. We can't just kick back and go back to sleep. But I think the human spirit and the altruism that we have will prevail. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've done, and then I want to talk more importantly about what I would like to do in the Senate with our federal environmental laws. But perhaps given the majority of you folk here today are students, I wanted to just run through how it was that I got to where I am now. And I think it's really important when you're studying at law school to keep open those options. You don't have to just work in a private law firm making money for people that already have a lot for no good cause and being miserable and ruining your health and having a miserable life. Okay, so you don't have to do that. Maybe just do that for a little bit to get your qualifications and then move on. So I'm here to say there are other options. So I started off doing law. Actually, I started off doing drama, actually, but it turns out I had no talent. So I switched to law and environmental science, and I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed studying the law, and I was really pleased to find out that I really enjoyed practicing it as well. And that was because I'd always known that I wanted to use the law as a tool to achieve outcomes for the environment that can't speak for itself, that needs us there to protect it. So that was my motivation, and I did my 18 months in a private law firm once I finished my studies to get my qualifications. But it was my great fortune that a job at the Environmental Defenders Office, which Simon has talked about, became available in Brisbane, and I went along for the interview, and I had not enough experience and certainly not as much as some of the other applicants, but my boss of now almost 10 years said that I was so keen that she just couldn't not give me the job. So I ended up working there for 8 years, and I've just finished up last month because I'm starting in the Senate in July and I'm already getting quite busy. But it's just a fabulous organisation, and there are EDOs all around the country, but if you're not into the environment, there are community legal centres, which the EDO is one, all around the country, that are actually there for people who care and who want to use their legal skills to help other people or to help the environment. So I strongly urge all of you in your careers to consider the community legal sector. The pay is atrocious, but the work is wonderful. It's meaningful. And you know, there's the other flexibility that goes along with working in a small team. You build great relationships, and you see results. So you know, if you're motivated by money, well, you're probably not here today. So I'll assume that most of you are motivated to achieve positive outcomes. So I would say to each of you, have a look at the volunteering opportunities that there are in community legal centres. The EDO is one here in Victoria, but there are many others, and maybe do some internships before you finish. Suss out what it is that you like and try it in practice. So I spent a wonderful 8 years at the EDO, and I was only ever going to leave it for a job where I could have even more impact. So it's my enormous honour and great surprise to be the first Green Senator elected in Queensland. In fact, the first Green elected anywhere in Queensland. Hopefully not the last. We're working on that. And it's a huge challenge, and on a daily basis I feel more and more naive and young, and more aware of what it is that I have to learn. But it is such an amazing opportunity in history when all of the environmental crises, all of the social issues that we're facing have really intensified, and yet our ability to learn about them has increased with social media, the internet, and of course in more immediate matters with the Greens in the balance of power in the Senate. So this is a huge opportunity for us to make a lasting impact on what the future is going to be like. And as a lawyer, I'm excited by that because Parliament makes the laws, and you know, we also shape social values and are in turn shaped by them. But you know, as a lawyer, it's going to be pretty cool to get to write legislation. So I'm really looking forward to that. So on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the federal environment laws and just talk about a few of the improvements that I think we really need to see to try and get a turnaround in those indicators, which, as Ian so succinctly pointed out, are all going down. Biodiversity is in decline, habitat is disappearing. Coal mines are opening up every other day, and in Queensland we've got a state government that wants to double coal exports in the next 10 years. And yet, we're facing a climate crisis. So, and of course, our Premier is, her partner is the head of the Office of Climate Change. So you'd think she'd kind of get the link there. But anyway, I won't go on about that for too much longer. But we've got these huge challenges, and at the moment we've got some okay environmental laws. They're much better than what they used to be. So I share Simon's positivity, but in real impact, they're not protecting the environment yet. They're just not quite there. So I guess I flip between the two schools of thought, the reformist style, which is my natural inclination, let's improve things, and I'm going to go through some improvements I think we need to make. But the other side of the argument is we just need a radical rehaul of the system, an overhaul. We need to put the environment at the centre of everything we do, and all other departments should be seen through that prism, because the environment is the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. I always mix that up and it really ruins it. But you know what I mean. We have to live within our natural limits or it simply won't work. It's a closed system. We're living in a dream world if we think that we can continue to consume as we have forevermore. So I struggle with whether to throw out our environmental laws completely and write something that's better, but then I remember, okay, the Greens aren't in government yet, so we'll just have to reform what we've got at the moment and work towards better ones in the future. So I'm not sure how much people know about our federal laws, but it's the federal government only has the power to legislate that's given to it in the Constitution, and as most people would know, there's not an environment head of power. So the way the federal government has the ability to regulate about the environment is through using those other constitutional heads of power, like the international affairs head of power. And how that works in practice is international conventions like the Biodiversity Convention, the Wetlands Convention, a number of others, then essentially give the federal government the power to legislate domestically about those matters. So it's kind of led to a bit of a silo result in our laws, which of course goes against the interconnectedness of our actual environment. So I mean, structurally there's a deficiency there that we can't overcome without a referendum that isn't on the agenda at this point. I'll cut to the point. The federal government only regulates matters of national environmental significance, okay, so it's already only the best of the best and the ones that are of national significance, not regional or local significance. And then it only regulates activities which are going to have a significant impact on those best of the best matters. So you're only ever regulating a tiny proportion and you're missing a whole lot of other things. I think the federal government needs to play a greater role in regulating the environment, and I think that those thresholds need to be much more encompassing. So that's the first thing we want to do, is change that bar about significant impact to broaden the federal government's ability to regulate, to try and stop bad things happening. The other main problem is the minister's discretion to approve projects. Now, the only fetter on the federal environment minister's ability to approve a project that is going to have a significant impact on a matter of national environmental significance is that he, and it is a he unfortunately until we get a woman in the role, he can, sorry, but it'd be nice to have a few more women in Parliament. We're getting there, but we've still got a way to go. He mustn't contravene a convention. Now, those conventions are great, but they're pretty vaguely worded. So what it boils down to is that the minister can approve something that's going to damage national heritage, a matter of national environmental significance. And that just seems wrong to me. If we've got a threatened species, then I think the minister should be precluded from approving a project which is going to send that species to extinction. That's not an outrageous concept to me. Clearly there's different opinions on that, but I just think we need some feathers on that discretion so that the Act can actually protect the environment. Wouldn't that be novel? So that's the second point. The number of approvals and refusals Ian's already touched on. It hasn't happened a lot. It could happen more, but it hasn't. And of course politics shapes the process. And that's probably something that we can never get over until we change the politicians so that they care more about the environment, and we're working on that too. The next thing that I think we need to do is allow better community participation. And Ian mentioned the enforcement of conditions, and Simon touched on it too. The government often does impose conditions on projects, and that's well and good. But if they don't then enforce them, there's no point. And companies bank on that, and they know that there is a very small enforcement department within the Environment Department federally, and you know they know that they can get away with a lot of stuff. So what we need is not only better resourcing for the government departments to enforce their conditions and do their job more effectively with more people and more money, but we need the community to be able to be better resourced to play that role as well. Now at the EDO, that's what we help people to do, use the law to protect the environment, and it's wonderfully gratifying, but you know, it's hard. It takes a lot of time. Community groups don't have a lot of money. They're often working full-time and juggling their own lives. They do this in their spare time, and they're doing it in the public interest, not getting anything personal out of it. So I think the system should support them in doing that. There's no legal aid for the environment, and there should be. So that's another thing that we're advocating for. And, you know, we're gradually making inroads. In some states there is, but nationally there isn't, and certainly in Queensland there isn't. But I want to, there's so much more I wanted to say, but I wanted to finish on different triggers that we need in those laws. I mentioned those matters of national environmental significance. They're things like world heritage, threatened species, wetlands. There's not a climate one. I mean, you know, what century are we in? And if you're all watching the news, you're seeing we're making progress in the Parliament towards getting a price on carbon, and that's going to be great, but it's just one part of the solution, and we're very conscious of that. It's getting a lot of media airtime, but it's certainly not the only thing that the Greens are pushing for. We need a full suite of laws. We need a climate trigger in that federal environment law, so that projects which are going to spew out a whole lot of pollution do need to be assessed on that basis. We need proper renewable energy targets. We need an energy efficiency target. We need laws about soil carbon. We need laws for federal funding for public transport, because there's nothing stopping the feds from funding public transport, but it just doesn't happen. And there's no reason legally why it shouldn't, and there's every reason environmentally why it should. There's a number of other things. Oh, a feed-in tariff, so that people can actually make money from having a solar panel on their roof. You know, we need to make it easy for people to do the right thing, because cost of living pressures are real. So there's a whole suite of things that we're pursuing in the Parliament. And yeah, I take heart, and I have hope for the future, but we do have a fair long way to go. But it's just so wonderful to see a whole room full of young people who have heart too, and I want you to be brave with that heart and that hope, and don't give up, and work for a better future, because we will get there, but we just need more and more voices speaking out and saying what's seemingly unpopular or a little bit risky, and just being bold about it. I mean, Bob Brown is the person who does that best, in my view, and obviously that's why I've ended up being a Green. But it does take bravery, and it takes a lot of personal sacrifice to do that, but the results are worth it. So good luck in your careers. Please work in public interest law, please work in environmental law, and do some wonderful things. Thank you.